Now, since Christmas, we've heard from Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer and Nicola Sturgeon. And now it's the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey's turn. Welcome to the studio. It's good to have you here. Now, you're setting out a big new idea today, promising that care workers would be paid an extra £2 on top of the minimum wage. Sounds like the kind of idea everyone would think, oh, I like the sound of that, but how would you pay for it?
Well, first of all, when I go and talk to people on the doorstep, the big issue is the NHS crisis. And no one thinks there's a silver bullet, a quick fix. But our policy to increase the minimum wage for carers, an extra £2 an hour, will deal with one of the big problems, namely that we don't have enough carers. 165,000 vacancies in social care, and if we get those care workers by paying them decently, then we can ensure that people can be discharged from hospital and deal with the waiting list. And we would pay for it through asking the gambling industry to pay more tax. We've set out that problem, and the real issue is the gambling industry poses costs on the health service, and we think they should pay their fair share. So
a sort of extra sin tax, but that doesn't sound very liberal, does it?
I think it's very liberal. The truth is that the gambling industry, according to Public Health England, are causing mental and physical health problems, posing a charge to our NHS. And I think it's therefore quite a good idea to ask them to pay more so we can pay the carers more. And this £2 an hour extra for carers would make a big difference. If we can recruit more carers, if we can retain more carers, that's the way to solve the health crisis. And this is the point we're making. You can't sort the crisis in the NHS unless you sort out the social care crisis.
And how would you actually make it happen, though? Because lots of care workers, and plenty watching this morning and their families, lots of care workers work for private companies. They don't always work for local councils, and local councils might think, well, how are you going to force us to do that? Would you pass a law? Would you have a special carer's wage, or how would it actually work? Would you force people to pay extra?
It would be mandatory. It would be a legal requirement that employers of care workers would pay them at least this extra £2 an hour on top of the national minimum wage. So it would be a legal requirement.
But lots of other workers, maybe nursery nurses or some teaching assistants and other people in important jobs who are paid the minimum wage, they might think, well, why are care workers special? Why don't you just increase the minimum wage for everybody? Why just pick on one profession? Is that fair?
Well, the real crisis facing our country at the moment is in the NHS. And people are deeply worried that they're not getting the operations when they want them. There's huge waiting lists.
But there are shortages of staff almost right across the public sector. So why pick out one industry?
Well, there's a shortage of staff across the whole country in the private sector and the public sector. That is right. But when we have an NHS on its knees because there aren't enough care workers, and when we can't discharge enough people quick enough, only 2 in 5 people leave hospital when they're able to leave hospital. The rest are kept in hospital because there are no care beds in care homes. There's no care workers to be able to look at people after people when they get home. So this is a policy which is targeted at dealing with not just treating care workers properly, but also the NHS. I've been a carer most of my life, looking after my mother when I was young, then my grandmother, and now with my wife, my son. And so I know how family carers are not valued enough in our country. But I also know the importance of professional carers. I mean, we need, in my family and in millions of families across the country, we need these social care workers. They've never been valued enough. And when I became leader of the Liberal Democrats, I said I wanted to be a voice of carers, whether they unpaid family carers or these professional carers. And this new policy is making good on that promise.
Well, we know how much our viewers and people watching this morning care about this issue, so it's interesting to hear you talk about it.